Hi boys and girls, I'm here with our read aloud book. We are almost at the end. We only have 3 chapters left. Today I'm going to be reading you chapter 17 and it's called Mr. Higgins Lies. That does not surprise me that the chapter is called that because I feel like he kind of lies a lot. Outside, Matt turned angrily to the inspector. If you'd bothered to search the crypt, you'd have found the real Coopers. If they die, it will be all your fault. We can't search a property without a warrant, said the inspector. To get a warrant, we need evidence, and there is no evidence. The owners told a convincing story, and the girl herself admitted she was making it up. She was scared. Besides, I gave you evidence. I'm a witness. I heard their plans, and I saw them sneaking into the crypt. What more do you want? It's your word against theirs, son. I don't think my boy is lying, said Matt's dad. I'm not suggesting he's telling deliberate lies, said the inspector, but I do think the girl is lying, and I think Matt here has misinterpreted some of the circumstances. Please, said Matt. If we could just sneak back in, get a ladder, and climb over the wall, you'd see. The inspector shrugged. My hands are tied. There are certain procedures, and I can't go against them. But if you find new evidence, I'll look at the situation again. It'll be too late by then, Matt said bitterly. His father squeezed his shoulder. Come on, son, let's get you back. You've done all that you can. At the home, Mrs. Doherty and Mr. Garner were waiting outside the front door. Mrs. Doherty smothered him in a huge hug. The police phoned and told us you had been found, she said. We were so worried and we're so glad to have you back. Matt turned to his father. You can't leave me here again. Can't I just come home with you? Matt, you know I've only got one room and it's just not possible. So it had all been for nothing. Matt's eyes stung with angry tears. I'll run away again. And next time you won't find me. Please, Matt, don't do anything silly. Just give me a little time. Time to clear off to the States? Matt flung at him. No, that was a crazy idea. I was just feeling desperate. Look, let me see what I can do. If you'll just stay here for a little longer, will you promise me? Matt turned away. Mrs. Doherty gave him an encouraging smile. Maybe, he muttered at last. I'm coming to see you next Saturday, said his father. I promise. He stared at Matt and then pulled him into his arms. I do love you, you know, more than anything. After he had gone, Matt paced the rooms and the corridors of the home like a caged animal, useless ideas chasing each other through his brain. He could escape again. Getting out of the home unnoticed was easy enough, but Craven Manor was hours away. Unless he could hitch a lift all the way there, he could still be too late. And once again, how would he get in? He could pester the police inspector again, but that would just make him more obstinate. He could tell his story to the newspapers, but why would they believe an 11-year-old boy without any proof? The other boys and girls were all at school, and the home was quiet, but the chimes of the grandfather clock in the hall each quarter hour were like the hammer blows in his head. Each chime brought the deaths of Sam and her parents closer, if they had not already been killed. Matt, Mrs. Doherty had appeared in the doorway, concern on her round motherly face. You mustn't stress yourself like this. Your dad will be here again soon. Come and have some lunch. There's a good lad. She didn't understand. She had no idea. None of them did. It must be nearly 18 hours since he had last eaten, but the thought of food made him sick. I'm not hungry, he said. Well, when you're hungry, she sighed, come into the kitchen and I'll get you something. Another hour passed, and then faintly he heard the ring of the telephone. Mrs. Doherty appeared again, potato peeler in one hand, telephone in the other. Someone for you, Matt? Dad, he supposed, or perhaps someone from social services to lecture him. Hello? He grunted. Matt! The voice was a whisper, but he knew at once who it was. A huge wave of relief raced through his body. Sam, where are you? Are you okay? How did you get to a phone? How did you know where to find me? I'm in my attic. I stole Irene's cell phone from her handbag, and I remember the name of your home from the radio. Are you all right? And he hardly liked to ask, your mom and dad? We're okay, but you have to help. You have to. Wait, I've got an idea. Matt rushed to the kitchen where Mrs. Doherty and Mr. Gardner were seated at the kitchen table, companionably preparing vegetables for the evening meal. Matt put the phone on loudspeaker and waved it at them. You have to listen to this, he yelled. It's my proof. Proof? Asked Mr. Gardner. What proof? What are you talking about? Never mind, just listen, please. Listen carefully and remember. But what? Shh, Matt yelled. No, not you, Sam. Sam, I've asked the people here to listen to you, and then they can back me up with the police. Police? Asked a baffled Mrs. Doherty. Sam, just tell us what's happening. I'm sorry I couldn't say anything when the police were here, Matt. Mr. Higgins said they would set fire to the crypt with Mommy and Daddy down there if I breathed the word. I couldn't take the risk. But you're still alive. I thought, yes, but it's so horrible here, Matt. Everybody's angry. I heard Mr. Higgins telling Irene that my parents won't finish the tests unless I'm sent to a safe place first. And Mr. Higgins told them that he'd take me down there and hurt me in front of them if I didn't do what they were told. Matt, I'm so scared. You've got to help. I will, I promise. Give me the number of the mobile so that I can keep in touch with you. No, I'll have to sneak it back into Irene's bag. Otherwise, they might have guessed I've used it. All right, I'm going now, but we'll get to the police as soon as, and you'll be safe. I promise. Matt knew he might not be able to keep that promise, but Sam needed to stay calm. He turned to a shocked Mr. Gardner. I can't explain it all now. There isn't time, but you both heard Sam. She and her mom and dad are going to be hurt if we don't do something to stop it. Will you phone the police and back me up? Well, Mrs. Doherty rose uncertainly. I suppose we can tell them what we've heard, but it sounds like something out of a detective story. Are you sure? It really is a matter of life or death, urged Matt. I swear. It was another hour before the information got through to Inspector Ryder, and yet another hour before he was persuaded to take action. I'm still not 100% convinced, he grumbled. I'd be a lot happier if I had some concrete evidence. It's a serious matter invading someone's property without it. But we all heard the young lady, said Mrs. Doherty. She seemed genuinely frightened. Yes, he said, but young Samantha is an expert at playing games. I've heard it all before, and Matt here knows. He rubbed his hand over a tired face. I have 3 other cases, too, he said, all of them important and all of them with evidence building up. I don't want to keep egg on my face over an imaginary kidnapping. Matt held his breath. Well, said the inspector at last, I suppose I'll just have to risk it. On the grounds that it might be true. Can I come with you? Oh, no, definitely not, young man. More than my job's worth. No, you need to stay right here. I'll telephone once we've investigated. He turned back at the door. I mean it, Matt. Stay here. No more phone calls, no more interference. You hear me? Matt nodded his head, but after the inspector had gone, he clutched Mr. Gardner by the arm. I have to be there. No, Matt, you heard what he said. But it could all go wrong. They might need me. I'm sure the inspector will sort it out. He didn't last time. Please, Mr. Gardner, you could drive me. We don't have to go inside. Just so then I'm near. Please. We can park outside the gates. I'll stay inside the car, I promise. At that moment, Matt would have promised anything. Eventually, Mr. Gardner gave in. All right, but we can stay outside the gates. Mr. Gardner drove his old Volvo so fast that it reached the manor as Inspector Ryder was still marshaling his troops outside the gates. Matt wound down his window. I'm here if you need me, he called in a loud whisper. The inspector strode across to the car. At this moment, you're the last thing I need, he hissed. You're just an added worry. As for you, Mr. Gardner, you ought to know better. Mr. Gardner shrank back into his seat. Sorry. The inspector poked his finger at Matt. You stay in this car and you don't move a muscle until we come out again. Do you hear me? I hear, Matt answered meekly. He watched as the inspector pressed on the intercom button on the gates. You're not going to warn them, are you? He asked. We still can't force our way in with all guns blazing, young man. This isn't James Bond, you know. Matt glanced at the inspector and his sergeant and turned around to look at the following car that held 2 constables. I can see that. No need for sarcasm, son. There was a delay of several minutes before the gates opened. Filled with dread, Matt wondered if at that moment Sam and her parents were being hurt and the evidence destroyed. Now stay there until I say different, Inspector Ryder ordered sternly. You promise? He had no intention of keeping that promise. He waited until the second the car had followed the inspector. And then, just as the gate started to close, he flung open his door and raced through the narrowing gap, ignoring the anxious cry for Mr. Gardner. That is the end of chapter 17. We have 2 more chapters left. What do you think is going to happen next?